There's a tax loophole in Greece that lets foreign retirees pay less tax than a part-time coffee shop employee. It's not a scam, it's not a gray area. It's an official government program, and it's part of why Greece was just named one of the best places in the world to retire. But the real story isn't the tax rate. It's what happens to your money once you actually move there. Let's break down the real economics of retiring in Greece. Here's the headline. Since 2020, Greece has offered qualifying foreign retirees a flat 7% tax rate on their foreign-sourced income, pensions, dividends, rental income, investment returns for up to 15 years. Compare that to Greece's own standard income tax, which climbs as high as 44%. Compare it to what many retirees were paying back home. To put a real number on it, a retiree pulling in roughly 1,800 euros a month in pension income would owe somewhere around 126 euros a month in tax under this program. That's not a typo. That's the deal Greece is offering to get retirees to move their tax residency there. But a low tax rate only matters if the cost of actually living there makes sense too. So let's look at that side of the equation. Multiple cost of living studies from 2026 converge on a similar range. A single retiree can live comfortably in Greece on somewhere between 1,100 and 1,600 euros a month, depending on the region. A couple typically needs somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 euros. That's all in: housing, food, healthcare, and leisure. For comparison, that's roughly 40 to 50% cheaper than the UK or the US for a comparable lifestyle. A one-bedroom apartment in a smaller town like Nafplio or Kalamata might rent for 400 to 600 euros a month. In Athens, expect closer to 500 to 900 euros. On the more touristy islands, think Santorini or Mykonos, costs climb noticeably higher, so location within Greece matters almost as much as the country-level decision itself. Groceries, dining out, and everyday services run consistently 25 to 30% below Western European prices. Private health insurance, if you want it in addition to public coverage, typically runs 80 to 150 euros a month per person. So how does someone actually qualify for the 7% rate? A few conditions matter. You need to move your official tax residency to Greece and spend at least 183 days a year there. You need to not have been a Greek tax resident for 5 of the previous 6 years. This program is for new arrivals, not people gaming their existing residency. And your home country needs to have a tax cooperation agreement with Greece, which covers most of the US, UK, and EU. Once approved, the 7% rate applies to all foreign-sourced income for up to 15 consecutive tax years, an unusually long window compared to similar programs elsewhere in Europe. Portugal's old NHR program, for comparison, offered a 10% rate before it closed to new applicants. Italy's flat tax regime for wealthy retirees can cost 200,000 euros or more per year, aimed at a completely different income bracket. Greece's version is simpler, longer, and open to a much wider range of retirement incomes. This is also where a financial or tax advisor earns their fee. The paperwork itself is straightforward, but getting the timing and documentation right, especially around your 5-year non-residency requirement, is where people tend to trip up. Taxes are only half the puzzle. You also need legal permission to actually live there. EU citizens have it easy. Show up with a passport or ID and register locally. Non-EU citizens, including Americans and Brits, generally go through Greece's financially independent person visa, which requires proving roughly 2,000 euros a month in income for a single applicant, about 20% more for a spouse, plus mandatory health insurance. That visa starts as a 2-year permit, renewable in 5-year increments. After 5 years of continuous residence, you can apply for permanent residency. After 7, citizenship, though that requires conversational Greek proficiency at that stage. There's also Greece's Golden Visa, a residency by investment program requiring a real estate purchase, historically starting around 250,000 euros, though that threshold has been rising in certain high-demand regions. It's a faster path to residency for people who'd rather buy property outright than prove ongoing income, but it's a materially different financial commitment than the income-based visa route. Here's what the glossy retirement articles tend to leave out. Public healthcare access requires a Greek social security number, called an AMCA, and while public coverage exists, many expats still carry private insurance for faster access and English-speaking doctors. That's the 80 to 150 euros a month we mentioned earlier, and it's a real ongoing cost, not a one-time fee. Bureaucracy in Greece has a reputation, and while it's improved significantly in recent years, opening a bank account, registering for a tax number, or finalizing residency paperwork can still take longer than expected. Budget patience, not just money. And the popular islands that show up in every best places to retire list, Santorini, Mykonos, are often the most expensive parts of the country, sometimes rivaling Western European coastal prices. The real value in Greece tends to live in the places that don't make the postcards, Crete's quieter towns, the Peloponnese, parts of Thessaloniki. The country-level tax advantage is real. Where exactly you settle inside the country is what actually determines whether your budget works. Let's put it all together with a simple example. A retired couple with a combined pension income of 2,500 euros a month moving their tax residency to Greece would pay roughly 175 euros a month under the 7% program, compared to what could easily be several times that back home, depending on their original country's tax brackets. Settling somewhere modest, say, a smaller town in Crete or the Peloponnese, their all-in living costs might run 1,400 to 1,700 euros a month, including rent. That leaves a meaningful monthly surplus compared to their income, even after factoring in private health insurance and the visa's income requirements. Settle in Santorini instead, and that same math looks very different. Costs could easily eat most or all of that surplus. The tax program is close to a flat, predictable advantage, regardless of where you live in Greece. The cost of living side of the equation is where your actual choices, not the country's tax policy, determine whether the numbers work. Greece's pitch to retirees is genuinely one of the strongest in Europe right now. A long, simple, low tax rate combined with a cost of living that's dramatically below the US, UK, and most of Western Europe. But like every move here and save money headline, the real answer depends on the choices underneath the headline. Which region, which visa path, how much healthcare coverage you want, and how much bureaucratic patience you're willing to spend up front. Run the real numbers for your specific pension and lifestyle before you commit to anything. The country-level advantage is real. Whether it works for you specifically is a much more personal calculation.